In an orchard in southern Wales, not far from the legionary fortress of Caerleon, Roman tomb was discovered. Among the roots and ruins, burned bones, broken urns, a coin from the reign of Trajan, and 8 inscriptions erected by the families who built and shared the tomb were found. One of these, inscribed on a thick limestone slab, commemorates a certain Julius Valens, a veteran of the Second Augusta Legion, who passed away at the age of 100. Although there is no way to know for certain whether Julius Valens actually lived to a century, there is no reason to doubt that, like Tiberius Julius Xanthus, a naval officer who lived to 90, or Lucius Tunius Martial, a legion rider who died at 93, Valens may have enjoyed decades of life after retiring from the Roman army. The life of a Roman soldier during the imperial era was undoubtedly harsh. The Roman professional army required long periods of service, ranging from 23 to 28 years, depending on the specialty. During the 2nd century AD, legionaries, auxiliaries, and sailors spent decades serving their empire. Some men, like the legion's standard-bearer, who apparently died still on active service at the age of 72, remained in the ranks much longer. The years of service in the Roman army were not easy, far from it. Although the imperial era was characterized by a period of relative peace, death in combat was never far away. Although epic disasters like the defeat in the Teutoburg Forest, where 3 legions were annihilated, or the humiliation suffered by the 12th Fulminata Legion during the Jewish War, were rare events, any skirmish could be deadly. Military records tell chilling stories, like that of a centurion and his son, killed by raiders who infiltrated their fort during a surprise raid. However, the dangers of military life were not limited to direct combat alone. A report on the casualties of an auxiliary cohort stationed in the Balkans during the reign of Trajan documents not only deaths in battle, but also those caused by bandit ambushes and much more unusual dangers, like drownings while attempting to cross treacherous rivers during a mission. Even the weather, often unpredictable and extreme, posed a deadly threat. During the reign of Nero, a Roman army was forced to spend the winter in the harsh highlands of Armenia, where several soldiers perished from hypothermia. Many others lost limbs due to frostbite in the region's extreme cold temperatures. The dangers posed by the weather were not limited to low temperatures. A few years later, another Roman army camped outside of Rome just as the peak of the Italian summer brought scorching heat. In this case, it was not the enemies, but rather the extreme exhaustion due to the heat and high temperatures that took down many soldiers. Fever and exhaustion were responsible for the deaths of several legionaries, proving how vulnerable they could be, even in times of peace. But if nature and battles weren't enough, life in the Roman army was governed by an unrelenting and brutal discipline. Minor infractions, such as failing to maintain order or showing disobedience, were severely punished with flogging, while more serious offenses brought even harsher consequences, the loss of limbs or even broken bones as punishment. The most serious offenses, such as falling asleep at one's post or deserting during battle, were punished with the death penalty. However, the most infamous and feared punishment by all soldiers was decimation. The execution of one soldier out of every 10 in a unit condemned for cowardice or failure in their duties. Although rare, this practice was not unknown. In a particularly notorious case, Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, decimated a cohort that had fled before a group of Illyrian rebels, and as a lesson, ordered the execution of 2 of its centurions. Despite all these dangers, the greatest threat to a Roman soldier's survival was neither the weather nor the battles, but diseases. Despite the considerable efforts of the Roman Empire to maintain medical infrastructure, with doctors following the troops into battle and camps equipped with hospitals, the lack of understanding of germ theory left soldiers completely vulnerable to countless diseases. For example, a typical report of an auxiliary cohort serving along Hadrian's Wall indicates that more than 10% of the men in that unit were incapacitated from service due to diseases, injuries, or conditions like eye inflammations. This figure reflects only a portion of the many soldiers who fell not by the enemy's sword, but by diseases that spread quickly in the unsanitary conditions of the camps. On the other side of the empire, an Egyptian legionary wrote in a letter to his father how, in addition to being wounded in combat during the suppression of a riot in Alexandria, he had fallen victim to severe food poisoning after consuming spoiled fish, another of the great threats faced by Roman soldiers. Thus, soldiers not only fought on the battlefield but also waged a constant war against the elements, diseases, and a discipline that showed no mercy, making each day of service potentially their last. Being part of the Roman army not only meant a life of discipline and constant danger, but also facing a considerably low chance of reaching retirement. If a soldier managed to survive to the end of their service time, they could finally receive their formal discharge. Every 2 years, on January 7th, veterans whose service had expired were discharged, marking the end of their military career and the beginning of a well-deserved rest, with rewards symbolizing the state's gratitude for their service. For soldiers in the auxiliary legions, the most coveted reward was Roman citizenship, a status that granted fundamental rights and privileges within the empire. On the other hand, legionaries received a large bonus, equivalent to more than a decade's worth of salary, which could be given in cash or land, a considerable fortune for those who managed to survive the years of service. However, what were the chances that a Roman soldier would survive long enough to enjoy these benefits at the end of their career? Although it is impossible to determine an exact calculation for a specific region or period due to the variability of circumstances, the thousands of tombstones erected for soldiers and veterans across the Roman Empire provide at least an approximation. The collection of inscriptions Latini Selecti, which gathers around 10,000 Latin inscriptions, includes a small sample of about 100 epitaphs of fallen soldiers. Most of these men had enlisted in the legions in their late teens or early 20s, and many of them died in their 30s or 40s, often still in active service. A study of the tombstones of soldiers from the 3rd Augusta Legion, stationed in North Africa, reveals that the average age of death for these soldiers was approximately 47 years. This is particularly relevant because most legionaries served for an approximate period of 25 years, and the average age of enlistment was around 20 years. This implies that, in most cases, soldiers were approaching the end of their life expectancy by the time of their retirement. Demographically, in the ancient Mediterranean regime, it was expected that around 78% of men who enlisted in the legions at 20 years old would survive until 35 years old. 69% would reach 40 years old, and 60% would live to 45, the approximate age at which many retired from the military. These figures, while impressive, do not fully reflect the reality. The survival rate was considerably lower in practice due to factors such as violent death in battle, diseases, and early fatalities occurring during the harsh conditions of military campaigns. The reality of life as a Roman soldier, especially in times of intense conflict, meant that the odds of reaching retirement were even lower. The constant danger of battle, contagious diseases ravaging the camps, and the exhausting marches under extreme weather conditions were just a few of the risks faced by legionaries. Additionally, the relentless punishment for infractions and the constant pressure of discipline could also lead to death before reaching retirement age. Therefore, although the Roman Empire offered attractive incentives for those who survived to their retirement, the harsh reality was that only around half of Roman soldiers managed to fulfill their service time and enjoy the benefits that came with retirement. This not only highlights the strength and resilience required to be a legionary, but also the overwhelming difficulties faced by those who enlisted in the legions, willing to give everything for the empire.